Boom. Look at
What's
that.
up, dude?
What's up, man? What a
Rock and
day.
roll.
I've been running around, as you can see.
Yeah.
Things are coming into order as they have been, as they will say.
Well, I'm excited you're here, man. I'm very excited. But, I think we shouldn't belabor this too much because we've got a very, very special third voice to add to the greatest movie ever made this week. Somebody who I could not be more excited to hear their thoughts on today's film, Predator, truly the greatest film ever made. You guys know him. I'm not going to he's a fucking legend. We got Matt Iceman back on the show.
Already. You've belabored it already.
Hey, what are we waiting for? Do it now. Bring me in.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Contact.
Dude.
This By the way, are we not going to address the fact that Drew actually has the Predator behind him? I see the head. It's coming out of the camouflage. Out there. Past them trees.
Past them trees. Drew is literally, he is using his Predator camouflage in his room.
Did he take himself off as though this feels like the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, it's all a ruse. So Matt, the reason we have you back here for the greatest movie ever made is because when we were out on the Action Guys a few weeks ago, you told us as a child you had two posters on your wall. One of them was Predator, I believe. The other was Commando.
Predator was in my childhood bedroom. And by the way, when I say child, I mean, that was until I was 18. So, and it's still up there. It is still up in my parents' house. I won't let my mom touch my room. In college, it was Predator, Commando, and Terminator were the three posters I had up. And I think the Predator poster was masterful. In fact, I don't want to get into too much, but the Predator poster was so good. And just the taglines on it, I thought encompassed why the movie was so good.
It's a really special movie. It's a movie that I have always had like such a soft spot in my heart about. I feel like this movie, as crazy and weird as this is, I feel like this is the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I know.
Whoa, we're getting into that topic right now.
I know it's because there's like a few others, and we'll have that conversation a little later. We'll kind of justify our points, but like that's the way I've been feeling for the last several years as Drew and I have talked about this movie. It keeps climbing just a little bit each year for me, and so the question I have for you guys, because this is how we have been starting the show recently, and I think this is a good question to ask. And I'll start with you here, Matt. In 20 years, 2040, will people still be talking about 1987's Predator? Will this movie still be talked about? Why or why not?
I think so. As I look at it, I think it is one of the ones that really started a shift that we saw in the mid 80s, I think, from a lot of campy action to taking the action movie to an elevated form. And I thought Predator did it. And I think the surprising thing when I went back and rewatched it was how well this stood up. By and large, other than there's one scene which I'll get into that I thought didn't hold up as well. But other than that, I thought this was a movie that could have been released today. And from the plot, the music, the pacing is a little slower, but I thought the special effects in particular aged extraordinarily well. I thought it's such a good job of the build and the build of the Predator along the lines of Jaws, where for so long we don't see it, but you fear it. And I thought that the payoff on it was better than promised. I think, and of course, you still have the magnetism of Schwarzenegger, and I think probably one of the best villains he's ever fought in the Predator, who has no lines other than lines that other characters said.
Well, I think for me, that's the biggest thing too, is that, like, you know, we're talking about a guy that's going to go down in history, like in American cinema, in American politics, in just American history, period, in Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you look at this movie and it really is a moment where you're like, dude, this guy is a fucking star. He's sexy. He's ripped. He can barely speak English, but my God, every line that he says is so engaging. I mean, that's what Arnold's all about. I mean, Ben and I have talked about this many times throughout our career as friends and also as business partners. It's like Arnold's conviction with the accent is one of the actual most endearing things about him. It's the same thing about my mom, man. She's been in America for 50 plus years. And like, you can understand probably like 3/4 of what she says. and the other 25% you can put together with like just enthusiasm and like, just like problem solving.
And they never once in any of his movies do they address it, or do they give him a foreign name?
Fuck that. You never would. That's America,
I'm Ben Richards.
Ben Richards.
I mean, you could just say, yeah, like he came from Germany. Like, at least I remember in the Von Damme movies, once they'd have him come from like New Orleans to explain some of that accent. Something. With Arnold, they never did it. And immediately you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good.
You hear him say meat grinder. You're like, all right, whatever, man. I don't know where that's from, but I'm in. And like, he's going to be celebrated forever. And this is a movie that I think is one of the best places to look at his greatest moments.
Yeah.
So you think, so your argument as well, Drew, is that in 2040, people are still talking about Predator?
I mean, probably not in the same way that they'll most likely speak about like Dune or like Blade Runner 2049, unless we were to get a great Predator remake like we've got of those films with Arnold in it. And in like, you know, you look at The Force Awakens and like getting Harrison Ford back. Will we ever get that with Arnold? I don't know. I feel
like when I thought about it, my argument is I think in 2040 we will not be talking about Predator. And I think the reason is because they've had an opportunity within 10 years each time of releasing a sequel or a reboot or a follow-up. And every time they try to do it, the best we get is a little bit of a subpar effort. It's never anywhere near as good as this movie. And this movie lives on. If you think about the movies that are like the contemporary sort of action movies of this era, there's only a few that really stand out from that 80s era, right? You've got Star Wars movies from just before that. They've all lived on because of the mythology. You've got like nothing else Schwarzenegger did from that time other than the Terminator movies has really had the lasting impact, right? Like Total Recall, cult favorite, doesn't like hold up the same way, but Predator is revered. People talk about Predator like it's one of the definitive action movies. And so I think if any of those sequels had the resonance that Mad Max Fury Road had for Mad Max, you'd be looking at 2040, people still talking about it. But I think in 2040, Schwarzenegger's going to be like 90 or something. I think he'll still be going strong. He'll still be putting up plates at gold.
It is. You're right. I think once he's gone, then, you know, does it become like Bogart and these things of nobody feels, nobody will feel ownership. Like there is something of all those classic movies that you can go back and watch. It's just different because those actors weren't around. We didn't know them in their prime. So there is, it will be interesting to see and how movies shift in the next 20 years from the silver screen to VR, AR, whatever it is.
In 2040, when you think of Arnold, what movie is going to pop into your head? Are you just going to go straight up Terminator? Because those are most likely going to be like T1 and T2. If we're talking things that are going to be in 2040.
I think the advantage that Terminators have with the future is that prediction of the future, even though we've kind of caught up to where everything happened. I think that because it dealt with the time travel and the fundamental struggles of humanity versus machines and AI, which I think is going to be an ongoing question of as AI increases, that Terminator will be one of these, is it prophetic movies? That'll be, I think it is just, that is probably going to become more topical. And Predator, you know, I think Predator is like this hunt, this idea of this primal, very, very Darwinian survival of the fittest. but I don't think that's something we'll be addressing in that same way. That idea of the violence of it, which I loved, but
dude,
I don't know how that will be viewed in the future.
So I guess my thought, jumping back to that then is so it sounds like we're all kind of on varying degrees of this movie is a classic. We don't know where movies will be in 2040, but it doesn't have that sort of resonance that like certain films from the 80s or 70s have, right? Like there's only a couple movies if you go, because we're starting to get back to the era where like in the 70s, how many 70s movies actually still get talked about? You have The Godfather, a couple others that really stand out, but a lot of them have faded off, gotten rebooted. I do think Predator has that mythology attached to it. And you mentioned how well it holds up. I think that's one of the reasons that it's still so good is Stan Winston with his practical creature magic. I mean, the Predator looks fucking phenomenal, dude. He looks incredible.
It is. So I was watching The Mummy Returns was on, and I was enjoying it. And I thought that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Other than when the Scorpion King appears, The Rock, and it is an awful animation.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That wouldn't pass. That barely looks at home in like a Seth MacFarlane cartoon. And I thought that movie was mid late 90s, if not early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of I think it's what you saw with particularly the middle Star Wars movies, which were the original three, where the CGI was getting better, but still wasn't human. And the ability that I thought the greatest thing, the thing that transformed it again, going back to the villain, the Predator, was this was unlike anything we'd seen, where the monsters were plodding and slow and kind of the zombies, and that they just inexorably got to you. Instead, we're seeing this athletic creature. And then when its helmet comes off, it's dexterous. I thought that was one of the great things was when the Predator was tending to his wounds, when he was, you saw like, despite the claws, and I thought it was unbelievable and a great choice to show these dexterous fine movements performing the surgery on his leg. And when he used the panel, even though you imagine he's in these rubber gloves, and I saw later like that the mask was invisible. I thought that the creature was so believably real. And just what you said, when the mask comes off and you see the mandibles going and you see the eyes in it, it looks like an absolutely real creature.
Yeah, dude, 150%. And still to this day, that is my favorite movie, or my favorite moment in the entire movie, is when you see the Predator take his gear off, because you're like, oh my God, my imagination was going all over the place, and this thing is more disgusting and horrifying and like
it's delivered
together.
Though. The build, because that's an
well.
hour and a half in that we finally see the face.
It's so good,
and it was worth it.
And like Galagos here says, did you know Stan Winston was designing the Predator with James Cameron sitting next to him on a plane? And he looked over and said, I've always wanted to see something with mandibles. And like, dude, the mandibles truly, even to last night, this morning, they pay off so tenfold.
And Aliens too, right? I mean, to see, right. And what a credit to Stan Winston.
Yeah.
To see how instead of these like stop action or, Roy Harryhausen, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, these things that were just these bad rubber suits, to see this thing where I'm like, I still don't know how they got the mandibles to move in such a convincing fashion. Well, it's just a spectacular scene.
We talk about this a lot, right? So like when a few years back, we did a review of Aliens, and the big takeaway from that was sort of similar. The practicality looks better than most of what you're seeing today. Yeah. It just looks amazing. And so I think we can dive a little bit more into this. Before we kind of start to get into the bits of the show, I do want to give a quick shout out. We had a couple brand new general upgrades. We've got a brand new general in CJ Robinson. So big time salute to you, General Robinson.
To you, Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah. We have a general, Drew. I don't know. We got a Patreon message here. I gotta make sure that I do this right, because we had a general who signed up, but only wants to be referred to by a certain name. The Director Smithy.
Is this the captain? This is the colonel?
This is
it's not the captain. It's not the colonel. It's the general, the director.
Director. The Director Smithy. We'll get a little more used to it, but that's another new general in the Army here. That's a big time salute to you there as well.
I love that. The Director Smithy. Cheer.
Yeah. And the last one is we got an appeal from up high on one of our call signs. I mentioned this in the bunker, but I know we said it's a complicated process to change your call sign with COVID and all, but his connections at the DoD got him through.
Frustrating, yeah. And, it's amazing. Like you figure Jake would use his power for good, not evil, but Mr. Jake Yacovetta, working for the defense the Department of Defense was able to appeal the name process.
We got a phone call from somebody who wouldn't even tell us their name. He just warned us if we didn't.
We
take
had a
his
red
word.
phone ring with a light in the room. We didn't even know we had one. So he was officially before call sign Yachts. But now, after getting a call, he is going to be call sign Bartab because legitimately, Matt Eisman, if you find Jake Yakoveta at any bar in America or internationally, foreign waters, no matter how much you drink, that man will take your bar tab.
Yep.
He will take your bar tab and he'll tell us about it. He'll go, fuck, I should not have taken that bar tab for Eisman last night. That shit was unbelievable.
I gotta drink with Yachts.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
call sign
general bar tab. Call
sign bar tab.
Call sign bar tab.
Here we go. So big time salute to you, my friend.
Iceman needs a call sign. I mean, he's a fucking patron. Do you guys know this? Matt Iceman is a supporter of action. He's an actual patron.
He's a sergeant. I mean, honestly,
I got my Schwarzenegger little call. Well, listen, I was Iceman before Kazansky was. That was my nickname growing up.
He should just be call sign Iceman.
Call sign Iceman.
He really is. Ice runs through this guy's veins.
Iceman, I love it.
Yeah.
Reporting for duty.
Salute.
Love it. So, all right, those are our shout outs. We're going to get into the first bits of the show. So the very first thing we're going to do here on the show is something called Fist Pump Moment. And there's not almost a better movie that I can think of for Fist Pump Moment than Predator. This is that moment, something happens, you kind of look around, you're like, are you seeing this right now? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm so excited I get to watch the rest of this movie. You want to call your buddy and be like, dude, you got to turn it to 42 minutes and 17 seconds. You've never seen anything like this. And this movie, dude, I wrote you, Iceman. I was like, these are the instructions. This is what you got to do for the show. And you were just like, fist pump moment and all in on fist.
He's like, I'm fist pumping right now. So
I think I sent you because I was watching, and of course, when he and Dylan see each other and just lock arms, and of course, I now have multiple photos of me with Schwarzenegger where we're locking arms.
Oh my god!
I mean, again, it's like you gotta do it with Dutch locking arms. That moment when you just see the flag, and Carl Weathers too. What a specimen.
Yeah,
like the idea that he's pushing papers. Come on, Dylan. That dude is a beast from Apollo Creed to Dylan. I thought that was my first, but I will say that was not my. If I had to choose one, it's right after Blaine dies. Mac picks up the Vulcan, the belt-fed minigun, and when the whole team comes and they're unloading their guns, it's bullet bukkake, where just. And the thing I loved about it was just the raw display of firepower, but I loved it where like the team, they didn't come up and ask Mac a question. They saw him unloading, so they joined him. And what I loved about this movie was they didn't tell. They showed, which I love, where there's not just a ton of exposition. You see these little moments, the friendships, and I thought the characters between them and this team. And it was moments like that where this unspoken thing between all of them and the way they treated Billy. But that moment when they're all unloading their guns as a team just after Blaine went down, I love it. Just the minigun until at the end, it's just spinning.
Dude, incredible. I mean, that's my moment. That's actually my moment. Mine is that same fucking moment, because how could it not be? Because the moment where you see the guy, Bill Duke, who has been so dialed, he's so leveled. He's the guy that if honestly shit hits the fan, even before Arnold, I'm going to Bill Duke.
Yeah.
Because he seems to know what is going on and he loses it. And like, dude, in that same email, I pulled it up. You go, awesome. I am fist pumping right now. And I respond with, hell yes, dude. Contact, because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah,
he says contact and they mow the entire fucking jungle down without a word, without one word between each other. And like that's the moment where I think as a viewer you're like, holy shit, like Predator is real, dude.
Yeah. They use every bullet in the entire arsenal on the forest. They just use them all. If you're like tactically and strategically speaking, worst decision in history by the military. Okay, so Call Sign Sunshine here says, I love anytime Poncho's on screen.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Poncho. I like him a lot more than Hawkins. I feel like they're like obviously the two odd men out sort of that just like don't offer a whole lot of machismo in this movie. But I love when Poncho's like he's like, we hit nothing.
Yeah.
And
again. And I love because you see these are hardened soldiers.
Yeah.
And you see them all getting shaken. Yeah. And one by one, they start to feel the fear other than Dutch.
Well,
of the
dude, that's
Dutch.
the whole point too of the scene that we see, right? Like you go back and you watch this movie, and if you're like a person that's like a naysayer, you're like, what's the point of them like attacking those guys in the village? It's to show you, because even that in Attack in the Village, Carl Weathers is watching like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I want nothing to do with these guys. These guys are fucking crazy. But it's to show you what badasses these guys are as like a tactical unit
Yeah.
that have nothing, like no candle to hold to the Predator.
Oh, yeah.
Ben, what was your fist bump?
Oh God, there's so many. So I've been saying for years that like I love the whole interaction with the general at the beginning. Like everything from the minute he says,
You look good, Dutch.
You're looking good, Dutch. It's been a long time. It's been a long time, General. Like I love all of that, like all of it. But I think this time through, the stuff that got me, I mean, it's like an endless number of them. What was the one when I was watching through this time that I feel, I know what it was this time. Because pretty much every interaction in the movie between Schwarzenegger and Weathers does it for me. Like the whole cat and mouse thing where Schwarzenegger knows that Weathers is full of shit.
Yeah.
All Weathers' lines are just phenomenal. And so when he picks up the dog tags and he's like, he goes, Jim Hopper, I knew this man. Green Beret of the Fort Bragg. Now, what the hell are they doing here? And he's like, and Weathers is like, nobody told me about an operation in this area, Dutch. And, you're like, he definitely knows there was an operation in this area.
Yeah.
Dutch is on to him. This is a problem.
And Dutch is on to him too.
Yeah, and you're like, oh God, it's gonna get good. And then just like, okay. The other thing too, my one word for you. Biceps. This movie is not about abs. This movie is not about abs. It's about fucking biceps and chests. In the 80s, that's all you needed. You needed to do curls and you needed to do bench press.
Even my girlfriend like casually was like, was their arms like actually that big? And I was like, fuck, dude. Yes,
dude. Like
they were.
When Weathers is like, you don't really think that Boy Scout shit's gonna work, do you? And then they start like doing the thing where they're building all the traps.
Oh yeah.
Weathers is like just like pulling down the trees. They're all just like covered in oil. It's like
even when Judge stops them, holds up his arm. He's like, Jesus Christ, he's crushing watermelons in his arm.
Even when Weathers dies and the fake arm is shooting the machine gun, you're like, that arm is weak shit compared to Carl's real arm. That is not his arm.
When Billy takes off his gear to like fight the Predator at the end, and he's like, and he like takes the shirt off, and you're like, you see his back, you're like, that's a wussy back. Look at that body. That's nothing compared to Schwarzenegger. Like he's a twig, and you're like, the guy's like so jacked.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, that's the thing about this movie that I think is also very interesting is that everyone in this movie is like, you don't get a lot of their character development, but you get enough to where you're like, I don't care if these are cliches because that's what I want in an action movie. I want every one of these guys to be action movie cliches so that like after 10 minutes, yes, this is like a very light exposition, but I care about every one of them. Every single person know and love based off of cliches.
And I think they executed them, right?
Yes.
Like you saw like the real, I thought the friendship between Mac and Blaine.
Yeah, totally.
Was amazing when he's like, he was a good soldier. He's like, he was my friend. And you're just like, man. Yeah. These guys are brothers in war. And I just thought, that this was a movie that could have easily been super campy. I think it was probably written that way, a little campier. And instead, you get McTiernan, you get like a real jungle scene, and you get the greatest special effects villain, one of them of all time. Yeah. And I think that's why it's elevated.
Yeah, I think like because I agree with you totally. Like I really like that McTiernan does try to make this movie just like a little bit more legitimate than I think the Shane Black script kind of suggests. And I guess I've heard like Black was on set and kind of involved to punch up the script. That's like why he actually has a character in the movie. Mm-hmm. Because this is like the heyday of Shane Black, right? It's the same year as Lethal Weapon. Yeah. And so he's like really coming on the scene. But if you go back and you look at McTiernan and kind of the stuff that he was doing in this time, this is like his first big movie, right?
But the three movies he does
in a row.
Yeah.
Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October. I think he was elevated because I think Die Hard may have been I think that stands this time as one of the greatest action movies of all time. And that Lethal Weapon, I think along with Predator, but those really transformed action. But those three in a row to do them back to back to back, McTiernan was at his best. And in fact, they all were in their prime, right? I mean, you got Shane Black coming off Lethal Weapon, punching this up. You have but Silver is doing it. They just did like, it was amazing to see all of this, how much there was this incestuous between Commando and the director, Running Man. Yeah, all of them, where it was everybody, where I felt like they were all coming together, where this was the heyday of action.
Well, it's like they all figured it out at once, right? It's like we've all been doing all this fun shit. Let's all come together for this one movie that kind of puts all the greatest things about 80s action all together. And like this is the epitome of it.
I think also, like, if you look at sort of the modern action movie, I would say that when you look at 90s action movies, there's a lot more 90s action movies that feel like they are precursors to the movies we get today. Whereas like if you look at action movies in the 80s, there's not that many that actually hold up very well. Even if you go back and you go back and watch some like the Walter Hill stuff, you go watch like, like 48 Hours or something like that. Like, it's good enough. It's fun. It's clever. But it doesn't have any of the same pop that this movie has.
The actions are all cutscenes. In fact, my one knock with Predator is the guerrilla camp scene when they're attacking him, because so much of the action is gorgeous, particularly the fight with the Predator. But this felt like it could have been A-Team, right? Where all of a sudden these guys, and it's the only time where I thought, because coming off Commando, where I thought he was much funnier with the one-liners. These are the only two lines that snap him out of reality. Was "stick around" when he throws the machete through the guy and knock with the grenade, and I was like, those had no place in this movie. And again, it was the where so much of this has been this precise thing where three guys are shooting at him, they turn and just and they're like they're standing getting electrocuted. I thought that felt dated. That camp scene, and at the time, there's it wasn't.
Like really odd moments about this movie, and I'm so glad you talk about that moment specifically, because Ben and I referenced it yesterday when we were talking about doing the show. Is like, stick around, in those lines, they feel so out of place. Whereas normally for Arnold, those are just like, that's par for the course.
Yeah.
But in this movie, because of its legitimacy, those lines just feel so odd.
Because I think, all right, so we'll talk about this sort of. I think it's probably a good time to actually talk about this in terms of Schwarzenegger's canon. The thing, you look at Schwarzenegger's whole career. He starts making stuff in the like late 70s, early 80s. Most of us have seen Pumping Iron. His first real movie that is like a quality movie is Terminator. That's 84. So then he has a run from about
the shade on Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, I just mean like.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Terminator's it.
Terminator 84, and then I would say his initial real run is like basically a decade through True Lies. And in that time, he does 2 Terminators, he does Total Recall, he does Predator, he does Commando, Running Man, Red Heat, Raw Deal. He does like some of which are kind of, mediocre in terms of their actually quality, Last Action Hero, and some are real classics. But I would argue that's like the heart of his catalog. Yeah. And so my question for you guys is, today, what is the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? What is the clear best one for you?
To me, Terminator 2 is, and I think it is still one of the best movies. I love that movie from start to finish. It's one of the rare movies where the sequel, I think, is actually better than the original, and I like the original. I thought, again, from the special effects to, I mean, what an amazing twist to have Arnold go from being the most threatening bad guy you've ever seen to the hero, and to do it in a way that makes sense with time travel. And I thought, I just thought it was an unbelievable plot. And what the thing with Dark Fate, my problem was that you negate everything that came before, where you say, this is inevitable, this future can be rewritten. And I thought, but when you do that, it takes away from this feeling of what you do has meaning. And I thought Terminator 2 was so beautiful in the way, like, he dies in the end. And I thought, because Miles Bennett Dyson had that spare arm, right? The arm from the first Terminator. Right. And I thought he was going to take it because he'd lost his arm, and he could put this arm on and they could grow some flesh and he could go back. And I'm like, no, he has to die. I think Terminator 2 is the best. But I will say, for me, probably the more important movie was Commando, because before he'd done Conan and Terminator, where he's, either not speaking or he's a cartoonish character. And I thought in Commando, we started to see his humor with the one-liners, where in that movie it made sense. But he also had the relationship with his daughter, Jenny, where you humanize him. And all of a sudden you see Arnold's charisma has a chance to come through in a way that it didn't in Terminator and Conan. And I think you start to see this is the guy who eventually could become the kindergarten cop, who doesn't have to be the action hero taking his shit off, who can be so charming and so funny that he can carry those movies. And I think Commando was what showed them. And then, you know, and I do think that was where those lines, because Joel Silver, the producer, did Commando, and maybe they thought they worked in Commando, and they put those lines in. But I thought, you know, if there were a director's cut, I wouldn't wonder if McTiernan would have just cut those funny lines out.
Well, McTiernan's a pretty still serious guy, right? That's if you look at the stuff that he does after this, like it's definitely not his style. To like, I guess Bruce Willis has the one-liners in Die Hard, but they never
like snap you out of reality where you're like a cold-blooded mercenary going. I mean, maybe Dutch would, but he didn't strike me as that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's interesting because like all the things you talk about, I think for me it all comes together in True Lies, and the reason why is because of what you talk about is kind of that campiness and the humor and the superstardom that you get from Arnold. Whereas in like Terminator 2, I feel like he's almost still trying to prove himself. Because Terminator 2, hands down, without a doubt, is still my favorite movie. Like, if I have to take one Arnold movie above all else, it's that one. It's definitely the best. But if I think of like the most, like we always talk about on our show, the cruisiest cruise of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I think the most Schwarzenegger of Arnold is in True Lies, because in that you get him, he's still shredded, right? He's still a badass, but then he's also doing this thing that he loves, which is comedy. Yeah. And even though he's not the best at comedy when he means to, in True Lies, he tries a lot. And he's also got this other thing in there that he loves interpersonal relationships in his movies for some reason, even though it's like he's just trying to be a badass. Like he always needs like the general or the commander or
Tom Arnold.
Yeah, right. Or Tom Arnold or Carl Weathers, even in Predator, where you have to have this thing to latch on to. So when I look at True Lies and I look at him like trying to salvage his relationship with Jamie Lee Curtis and like be a good dad to Elisa Dushku, I'm just like, this is the Arnold that I love, because like this guy, I want Arnold to feel like a cool uncle. And in that movie, he feels like the coolest fucking uncle you could ever have.
Yeah, I think for me, the clear like acknowledgement is that I know Terminator 2 is his best movie. I know that in my heart, in my soul. If I was going to make a list of the 100 greatest American films of the last 50 years, I think T2's on that list. I think it's a paradigm shifting action movie. When I think about the movie that today I watch and I get the most like giddy and joy and excitement, I think it's Predator. I think when we used to rank our characters, Drew, on AMA like 5 years ago, we used to say heroes and villain rankings. I had Dutch like in my top 5 heroes ever because like he actually is a character in this.
I feel like you had the Predator in the top 10 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had like Bodie from Point Break as, you know, a top villain, and I had like Dutch as a top hero. And like, and Tavington from The Patriot is a top villain as well. But no, I just like as Dutch, there's just, and also, okay, because this is the other thing we didn't talk about. And I need to talk about this for a second, because this was your fist bump 5 years ago, but watching it again yesterday, I had the same moment. It's when they get out of the helicopter at the very beginning, and they all are getting out, and they're each in a very specific outfit. And the outfits made me think like, these guys are action figures. Every one of these guys, you're supposed to look at like, okay, so he's the guy in the tracksuit. He's the guy in the suit.
He's the guy in the red polo.
He's the red polo cigar. He's all business. You know, like everyone, okay, he's a little more like jeans and rock and roll t-shirt. Like they're really trying to communicate these guys' personalities in the way they dress as they're getting out of this helicopter. And you're just immediately, without them even talking, you're like, this team, I need to hear these guys hang out. I want to see these.
Don't you feel that they're all so cliche, but you don't mind? Because it's like that wonderful thing about action movies where you're like, you know what? If I'm going to sign on for a straight up like A+ action movie, I need to have cliches that take care of me. Like as silly as it is, yes, the Native American guy needs to be the tracker. Yes, like these things need to happen. Like this guy needs to be this and this guy needs to be this, because like if I'm going to just turn off my brain and watch a dumb like follow by the numbers action movie that actually elevates the whole genre, that's what Predator does. Because again, cliches make you feel comfortable, but they don't lean on them. They're just like, these are the cliches that let you know who these people are. Here's the movie.
Well, yeah. You get all this stuff, right? You introduce the characters, Dutch and Dylan. You get the arm thing. You know, the whole just Captain Minister, like that whole thing happens. So they get in the helicopter, And I remember saying this to you years ago, Drew, but I had the exact same experience again watching it this time, right? So he spits the tobacco. It's a real nasty habit you got there. The whole thing happens. And you're like, okay, these guys are all having fun with each other. The song, 7-4-7, whatever it is. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Schwarzenegger puts his arm up, music cuts, red light flashing. Yep. These guys are jumping out of a helicopter into the jungle, and you're fucking terrified.
All business.
They've given you everything, all the setup you need to feel nice and comfortable. And now these guys are finding skinned dead bodies alive within 2 minutes of landing in the jungle, and shit is on. It is fucking on.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Eisman said it best. It's all business, dude, because that's the best action movie, right? Don't waste our time.
Yes.
Get us sold on the story immediately. Let us know who these people are immediately, and then put us in the battle zone.
I think it's a good movie. And that's what I love with Die Hard. I thought Die Hard was the best at that. Where normally you feel everything's leading up to that boss battle at the end. And obviously that's the same in Predator. But instead of exposition or, hey, we're safe and we're out of it, they start you in the jungle and shit keeps going downhill and ramping up the tension. And I thought seeing the team members get picked off one by one, seeing their fear increase and the slow reveal of the Predator, it builds. It builds the whole time. And my other fist pump moment too was when Dutch is preparing for battle and he's geared up, he's mudded up, and he lights the torch and just gives the primal. And you hear it, and it's impossible not to feel this visceral. Because what I loved is, and the Predator too, when he's stripping off his gear, is like, we're doing this.
Yeah, mono e mono,
mono e mono. We're going alien to man. And like we're doing battle. And I think that's what it's stripped down to. Get rid of the gear, get rid of the guns, just one person against the other. Who's the greater predator?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like, I love, again, like throughout this, they're setting up for how badass this team is, but they do not have shit on the Predator. Like I love, I go back and I watch that scene where they attack the camp and they own everybody. Like it's not even close to a battle. And even again, Carl Weathers is like looking at like, holy shit, these guys are bad. Because Bill Duke is like, and then he like stabs the dude in the neck, whatever it is. But like again, that's to set up how badass the Predator is. In like 20 minutes, you're gonna see that these guys ain't shit compared to this alien.
Well, the best thing about that too is that when every member of the team is like, what is this Predator thing? They can't outsmart it and they just get killed. Even Weathers is like, I can just outgun this thing, right? But Schwarzenegger from the start is the only one who's just like, I'm not going to like be scared of what I don't know. I'm going to take this thing on. And the Predator, when he finally strips off his gear to fight him, he's recognizing the champion. That's the whole idea, right? The Predator needs to find the champion and kill the champion. Schwarzenegger is the champion. He's our jungle champion. He's going to fight the Predator. And so when the battle finally happens, mano a mano, it's like everything you could possibly want. It's also a creepy ending when he's got the Billy laugh and he's doing the Billy laugh.
Yeah.
And blows himself up.
Yeah, whatever.
You see him. I know you said this, Drew, this freaked you out as a kid, but like when they're preparing and he rips out Billy's spine and skull and swings it around.
All of the skin body shit, like even as a 32-year-old man, I go back and I look at that and I'm like, damn.
But that was why it was so good, because what could shake these guys? These guys have seen everything.
Yeah.
They haven't seen this.
And they even say it's like skin alive.
Yeah.
His body. Eisman, how old were you when you saw this?
So it was sophomore year of high school. I think I must have been 16.
So what the fuck? Like, did that scare the shit? Because like when I saw this,
at this point it was, you're 16 and you're full of testosterone.
It wasn't scary.
I mean, the gun, I called it because we didn't have the internet back then. You didn't know what a 20 millimeter mini cannon was. I called it the AS-221, the Arnold. And then we played laser tag in college, and my gun was called Old Painless, which is what Blaine called it. And it was the AS-221, and like to take that to which, and then of course in Terminator 2, he uses that same gun where you're like the most impractical gun that nobody could ever wield.
Yeah,
but motherfucker, it's spitting fire. It is so. It was. I just thought those little moments of the way it heightened it and the way they said, like, this is the biggest, they've never faced anything like this, showing their firepower, showing their ingenuity, how they're overmatched. I think it's again, we're so often told you have to explain these things. And other than, even with the mud where he just goes, he didn't see me. He didn't go, my infrared signal is masked. I thought for the most part, they did a wonderful job of showing and letting it build and not holding your hand and letting that tension mount, which I thought, which is why the movie gets me pumped.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna get through a couple of these donations here because I think actually one of them has a great question.
Okay.
So Raston King says for $3, my apologies, Ben, for being a dark looming figure at the end of the bunker. So happy that he popped in.
He was for a second. Yeah.
Salute to you, Ewood Brulage, Raston King. He also says, have you guys seen Van Damme's Predator costume during early production?
I think we did.
Hilarious because Van Damme was actually supposed to be the Predator, but he was upset that his face was not going to show enough. He was like, no one's going to know it's me, but he looked like a gigantic praying mantis. Either way, it's just a bad look. And then lastly here we have Joaquim Oliveira, which is, I love this. He goes, how can Predator have such a bad sequel? Salute. I think that's a great question because all of the Predator sequels are fucking awful.
Well, we did when we did Predator 2 on our old show, Drew. It was one of my favorite episodes we ever did.
I was gonna say I love the episode.
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is you don't have Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have the same Predator, right? I mean, the Predator's dead and Dutch is gone. And to me, it starts to undo the magic of the first one, where it's like the first one is perfectly self-contained.
Yeah,
and to be like, hey. Yeah, he's a hunter and he got outmatched. And yeah, Predator 2. I saw it in the theater and then never thought of it again.
Yeah, Predator 2 is hilariously bad.
Have you guys ever thought though that there should be like an actual good Predator remake one day? Like
what
imagine
was the one with what's his name from the piano? Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody.
Yeah, again, to me, like the problem with Brody was which again with Dutch and Blaine, all these guys, they were believable. So with Brody, I felt like this is a guy who went to the gym and got in shape for this and is trying to be a tough guy. As opposed to like, I thought all these guys, they weren't putting it on. Like, Jesse obviously was a SEAL and Bill Duke's a phenomenal actor and Sonny Landham too. Like they can be imposing. The best tough guys are the guys who don't have to lower their voice and act like they're tough guys the whole time.
Yeah, except for when Bill Duke has the ultimate low voice line.
Yeah, he does.
To Weathers, and he says,
"You ghosted us."
Oh yeah,
you ghosted us, motherfucker. You give away our position one more time, I'll bleed you real slow.
He was.
But that's what he talks like.
It's quiet, and he's okay. Maybe Bill Duke was chewing the scenery a little bit there. I don't know.
It's so good. And Weathers,
here's my question.
Weathers like. Yeah, he like this a little.
Yeah.
What if you got a movie with Navy SEALs or Marine Rangers?
Act of Valor.
In the jungle, and Arnold is there being like, you don't know what you're about to come into, and then it's the same Predator, it's like Predator his cousin, and it's
maybe I think that would be better, right? Like the Predator's son comes to avenge him and Dutch is out there,
and but Arnold is there.
Act of Valor, I don't know if you guys saw, I'm sure of course you saw that, but that was the one that started out as a Navy SEALs, it was like a training movie, and it was so good that they actually had real Navy SEAls playing these action heroes. And it's one of those ones where the acting is serviceable to very bad, but the action is so good and so well shot. I loved Act of Valor. I thought it's a spectacular movie because also in the back of your mind, you're going, these guys really do this. These guys really, they look like the soldiers. The technology was awesome. The firefight, like they break someone out of a camp at the beginning and end up in a river, and these boats come in to rescue him, and the same thing with the mini cannons, and it was all like authentic Navy technology. I thought Act of Valor was spectacular. Another one where like I would rather get people who are believable rather than you take someone from the CW and say we're going to make you the next action hero. It's like you really have to. I think it's a challenge. Like somebody has to have that some innate badass or just be a phenomenal actor to make you really believe.
The one that we always reference that Drew and I love the most is Lone Survivor. That's the one that feels like it just crushes. They totally capture that SEAL camaraderie. The guys all feel super believable. I love that movie.
So I will also say one of the things I love is listening to movie trailers, and that trailer is unbelievable, and it uses Peter Gabriel's Heroes at the end of it. I have it on my go-to mix on my iPhone list. So like I will listen to the trailers of awesome movies because they get you so pumped, and they often just use like incredible music, and Lone Survivor was one of them. It's just
that Peter Gabriel
spectacular.
That Peter Gabriel cover of Heroes, man, is because it plays in the end credits of the movie when they're showing the images of the real SEALs.
Oh yeah,
and that shit always gets me to cry every time I watch the movie.
They used it in Stranger Things to great effect. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's continue through these last couple bits here, Drew. I think box office and critical are probably a good place to touch on how this movie actually was received when it came out. I've got it pulled up here in front of me.
Okay.
So the film was released in June 12th, 1987. Domestically grossed $59 million, foreign 38 for a total of $98 million. Fox releases it. I mean, $100 million worldwide gross in 1987 is pretty big.
That's massive. I mean, I think that's because of Arnold.
Yeah. For sure. On his all-time list of U.S. films, it ranks ninth as of, this was a few years ago, but I don't think he's had, probably actually Dark Fate is higher now, I would think. Because
I would assume
inflation. But yeah, that's, I mean, pretty successful for the time. But again, looking at that part of his career and kind of where he was at, we talked about his movies. On the other side of it, you have Weathers, who it seems like Weathers is just like the sort of the B guy at the time. But actually, when this movie comes out, Weathers is about as famous as Schwarzenegger because he had just been in Rocky IV the year before and Rocky III in 1982, right? So those are massively huge movies.
Yeah, I mean,
what I would say is you see the difference because Carl Weathers is a phenomenal actor, and I thought, to be Chubbs in Happy Gilmore and be hilarious, like he's incredible. But you just see the difference of Schwarzenegger was never about the acting. It's the charisma and the fact that, again, I just don't think there's a bigger star on the planet. I remember I loved Rocky. The Rocky movies. I could quote the entire end of that fight of Rocky. Used to do that to try to get laid. Didn't really work. But I remember when I would see this movie, there's no question who you're going to see and whose name is on the poster. And it is Schwarzenegger who carries the movie and brings you to it.
I mean, I'm so glad you make that point because we've talked a lot in the career of Action Movie Anatomy about Schwarzenegger versus Stallone. And it's true because Stallone did care about acting. He cared about acting. He cared about his passion project. He cared about comedy and musicals and drama, whereas Schwarzenegger cared about paychecks and being a superstar.
Yeah.
And honestly, until Creed happened, Arnold was the clear winner by a mile. He was the winner by a mile, and he was the guy that didn't even care about Oscars, didn't care about writing, didn't care about any of those accolades other than just being a superstar. But here's the thing, man, is that guy was a fucking superstar. And even though now to the day, like Stallone probably has more critical acclaim to his name, it's tough to say who was the greater actual action star because I feel like it's got to just be Arnold. Even though Stallone had Rocky, Arnold never had a movie with Dolly Parton where he was singing and dancing. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't happen, dude. It just didn't happen.
Throw mama from the train. Oh, no. Stop or my mom will shoot with the Stell
Yeah, exactly. Oh, stop or my mom will shoot. Or like, what was that one where he was
Rambo, but Rocky and Rambo, those are two insane franchises.
Yeah, 100%. 1985, the three highest grossing films of 1985 are Back to the Future, Rocky IV, and Rambo First Blood Part 2. Stallone has two of the three. Yeah, that's crazy. It's 2 years before this. So the critical reception to this film, I'm scrolling down here for just a second, is
I mean it got a 7.8 on IMDb, which is actually really high for a movie like this. And
but those are users, right? Those are viewers.
Yeah. Well, so IMDb, it's like viewers and critics, whereas like on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got an 81% by straight up critics, which there's only 48, which
on
means
Predator.
On Predator.
It has 81% by critics.
Yeah. So that means that 80
is that are those modern reviews or are those from the day?
So it's both. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's usually both, and it's
because I will tell you, my mistrust of critics largely goes back to Schwarzenegger and Stallone movies.
Really?
Where I'm growing up in the '80s, and you didn't see a lot of critics, but it'd be like Siskel and Ebert, I think, were back then, and occasionally in the newspaper. And I remember when they would pan these movies, I was like, crumple. I don't care what you guys think. I love these movies, and that's where I'm like. I am going with my gut, and whenever I see Schwarzenegger or Stallone, I'll see those movies.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these 100% have to be like a little bit more recent because I know at the time a lot of these movies aren't quite accepted the way that they should be. A lot of people say they're like too grisly or gruesome or gory, Whereas like now you look at them and you're like, well, not gruesome, grisly, or
Yeah.
gory at all. They're just great action movies. So yeah, an 81% by the critics over time, and then an 87% by audience, which makes more sense. Overall, I actually think that's pretty good. I don't
Yeah.
know if it deserves like an A plus, like in the high 90s, but a high 80s score for Predator.
Yeah,
I'm
strong.
pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
I remember speaking about the distrust of critics because of Schwarzenegger and Stallone movies. So back on AMA last year, or it might have been the year before now, we did a review of this new film called Hurricane Heist, and we had Rob Cohen, the director, come on for it. And Cohen had
We spent all of our money on large fans.
Wait, is Rob Cohen the one who did the original Fast and Furious?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
dude.
So he
Yeah.
directed
Fucking
me
Matt
in a
Eisman
serious
is an action
commercial.
guy.
No way. He directed
And-
you in a serious commercial?
Oh my God, what he was doing Stealth. And I remember he
Yes!
lost his mind because I could quote the trailer from Stealth at that point.
You were the only person in the
I
entire
remember I
universe.
was so excited, and he was doing like a commercial, and I was, it's like a day. I was
Just
I
be
was
honest,
excited about it.
Eisman. Be honest. It's because of Beal. Just be honest. It was because of Beal. You're like, if I run into you, baby,
Stealth was
I've
awful.
got
It
your
was-
trailer locked down.
Oh
Well,
God.
so he told us this whole story when he came on about, because he came up in the early 90s. He did Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, then he did Dragon Heart, then he did Daylight with Stallone, which I think is underrated.
Yeah.
I
and,
love
And
Dragon
Viggo
Ball story.
Mortensen too.
Yeah, I know. He's
Oh,
the rock climber.
yeah.
And so, but so he was telling us, like, I hate movie critics with so much passion.
Yeah.
He was like, they ruined my fucking career. He's like, I put all this work into a movie, and then they'd come out there and they'd pan the thing. And he told us a story about some critic who was like a really big deal back in the day. And he like saw him at a restaurant once after getting horrible reviews. And he like approached him and like he gave him a piece of his mind. He was so angry. And just like, I just remember thinking, you know, it makes sense because like you spend years of your life working on something. You're excited about every aspect of it. He's excited about the fans in Hurricane Heist. He's excited about whatever he's working on. And it's, and then somebody just like sees the movie once and is like, I don't know, doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. It's
Fuck this movie.
one person's opinion, and granted,
Yep.
you know, they may be theater or students of film, but I always felt like, hey man, that's your opinion. And that's why I feel like awards too. It's like, hey, great. I think the best thing the Oscars can do is raise awareness of films you haven't done. But it's not as though if a movie that I love doesn't get an Oscar, I think any less of it. I think it's something that they do for, it's all PR. And the critics, I always felt like, man, if I enjoy a movie and you make me love it, man, then you know, I don't care what the critics think.
Well,
It's kind of like
also,
Twitter. Like, yeah, man, okay, I'm just gonna mute you.
At the end of the day, those films, our world, our lives are all better for having those movies. So if you want to be an asshole critic and rip it apart, here's the thing. I need the first Fast and Furious in my life. I do. I
Yeah.
don't know about Hurricane Heist, I'll be honest. But like the first Fast and Furious, even though he got ripped apart for it, like I feel like cinema in general is better because of that movie.
Well,
I hope he gets a piece of the whole franchise, man.
I hope so too. I was
think he
listening to a podcast the other day talking about Armageddon, and I think this was something really interesting that somebody brought up. And I thought this.
Oh, was
this
it the rewatchables, Ben?
It actually was, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But they talk about Michael Bay in the mid 90s when he was coming on the scene and when
Yeah.
he makes Armageddon, and he puts everything he's got in Armageddon, right? He thinks he's making the biggest, most impactful sci-fi movie you've ever seen. The thing is, sure, movie critics watch that and they're like, this is improbable. This doesn't make any
Right.
sense. But Michael Bay is basically like, I worked my ass off. Now I get a seat at the big kids table and you can't kick me out because my movie made $500 million. So my thing I came up with, I think they likened it to James Harden. They were like, James Harden comes in, he's got new moves no one's seen before, and he can do those moves better than anyone else. He can score better than anyone else. And everybody's like, oh, he's cheating. He's not playing real basketball. He's flopping just to get to the line. It's like, yeah, but he's scoring 50. So he's doing it right. And it's your game. He's playing by your rules, but he's succeeding. And that's what I like about that idea is like these action movies, when they're done well, I don't give a shit. This is not the piano. I will watch this over that movie any day of the week, 10 times out of 10.
And Armageddon too. Like the scenes that guy does, Norman Rockwell, those scenes of like the kids in the barn as they're wondering if the earth's going to end. And I think Bay is an unbelievable technician. I don't know that anyone shoots as vividly as he does. Bad Boys 2 too. It's just like the spectacle of a Bay movie. And, you know, I mean, when he directed me in Transformers 2, it was amazing. And but I think, right, they elevate the action movie art form. And it's like, okay, not for you, critics. Don't watch it. Don't, you know, I'm not going to the vegan restaurants. I know it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, as much as shit as we give about Michael Bay as a director, his visuals and his lighting, he's a genius when it comes to things that if you want to catch the eye and keep someone mesmerized, hypnotized. Michael Bay is someone.
You're flipping through the channels. Armageddon's on. It is. It's a rewatchable.
You're stuck. You're stuck. No matter what moment, even in fucking Armageddon or Transformers 1, you watch that and you're just like, I'm in, dude, or The Rock, 100%.
Just watch The Rock tonight.
Oh, it's spectacular.
So good.
All right, we got 5 minutes left, Bateman. What do we need to do, brother? What do we need to do to finish this out?
Yeah, I think there's probably one significant thing left to talk about, and that's going to be called the pitch. That was an eagle.
There you go. Eisman, make your sound, man.
What was it? The pitch?
Yeah, it's basically the movie we're covering next week. Something weird happened.
The pitch.
Something weird happened like a year ago. We started making all these sounds.
Oh, no. Yeah. I'm trying to do the Predator noise, which again, great sound effects.
Agreed. Yeah, like the rattling.
Yeah.
Distinctive.
Like, very good.
Yeah, Drew. So in this initial run here, we've only got 3 movies left from these.
I know.
So when we launched this show, 7 weeks ago, and we picked the 10 episodes of our old podcast, Action Movie Anatomy. We had done 230 episodes that we enjoyed the most. And we were going to start the show off by basically redoing those 10 movies on this format.
Nice.
And then all new shows. So the last 3 that we have left.
We should let Eisman pick. Yeah. Between the 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 choices are 1997's masterpiece, Air Force One.
Yep.
We have last year's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And we have 2016's underrated gem, The Nice Guys.
Have you seen all these movies?
I've seen all 3 of them.
Okay.
Look, what do I want to hear from you guys? I want to hear your take on action movies. I want to hear your take on 80s and 90s action movies. I would say Air Force One.
Yes!
Because again, get off my plane. And Gary Oldman, what a great hero.
Amazing.
Or a great villain. Hans Gruber, again, when you have a villain equal to the hero, it's so much better. The Predator's equal to Dutch. Hans was equal to McClane, and Gary Oldman to Harrison Ford's president.
Ivan Krasnov,
dude. Yeah, I'm so. This is why Eisman is a legend.
He's a legend.
Any normal person would go, it's got to be Once Upon a Time or The Nice Guys. They're the newest. I love Gosling, Leo.
Oh yeah, I am nostalgia. Maybe you want to check with the generals, see what they say. Get out of here,
dude. This is the first episode we ever did of Action Movie Anatomy almost 6 years ago. Was Air Force One, because it's one of my favorite movies. It's the very first R-rated movie my mom let me watch because she loved Gary Oldman so much as the bad guy, not Harrison Ford. Gary Oldman is the bad guy.
Mom's got a naughty side.
Yeah,
we recorded a fake lost audition tape of Nicolas Cage auditioning for the role of Ivan Krasnov, and it's Cage and he's in there. It's so dumb. Drew came over to my place like 5 or 6 years ago. We spent like all afternoon doing take after take after take. And just
I know Glenn. He's great. No, Glenn Close. Yeah, I know. He's a great guy.
I bet you guys could get Cage on your podcast now.
God, I wish.
Other than Tiger King, what's he up to?
Yeah, I mean,
dude, did you hear that Tara Reid was cast in Tiger King?
I heard.
Also?
I heard.
It's Carol Baskin.
This is becoming an elevated Sharknado, isn't it?
It's gonna be great, dude.
I mean,
Tiger-nado.
Cage and Shark in Tiger King is going to be a big deal. People get excited about that. And I mean, the thing about Cage is he's the only actor I can think of alive who like he makes like D-list choices a lot of the time, but he's still solidly A-list because he's Nick Cage. Because he'll never.
He's won an Oscar, and he's still one of those guys who's always watchable, even in dog shit. He's watchable.
Yeah, yeah, especially in dog shit. I would
especially.
So next week, I love it. We're doing Air Force One, which I could not be happier about. Again, first movie we ever covered, and here we are 5.5 years later. What
congratulations, man! I'm going to say that's a monumental achievement, boys.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm very proud of it. We can't believe we've had the honor of having you on 2 action industry shows in the last.
I love it.
It's been so much fun.
I have a blast.
Yeah, this is great. So, guys, if you want to be on the show, if you're a general already, send in an email to actionindustriesbrand@gmail.com. Let us know that you want to be the guest on the show. I'll bring you in for 5 minutes, talk about Air Force One. If you haven't seen the movie, trust me, you're missing out. It's fucking awesome. It's great. You'll love it. Be sure to check out everything that Iceman is doing. Iceman, talk to us for a quick second before you go.
Hey, Factorious. Every Tuesday, it's my podcast game show. You can see it right here, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm cooking every morning during the weekdays. Mornings with Matt. I set up my smoke alarms, and the LA Fire Department showed up at my house during the last show I was doing. So it's always entertaining. Yeah, I'm like Nicolas Cage, and I don't know what I'm doing in the kitchen.
So last time you were on the show, you had recently watched the Gordon Ramsay masterclass.
Gordon Ramsay masterclass got me cooking. It's been 5 weeks now where I've cooked at least 2, sometimes 3 meals a day. Which again, most people are like, "Yeah, that's what we do." I didn't. I was very immature about my food choices, and I'm eating. I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm having fun. Like I do it in the mornings on my Instagram live. And honestly, it's just that's why I love coming on this. For me, quarantine's getting me nuts. I love being able to just talk to people in the morning. So join me.
Hell yeah, man!
I guess last question before you go, because we have General Chowdhury threw in a super chat here asking, now that Disney owns Predator because they bought Fox, do we think that Disney's going to be able to do a better job of the sequel? That'll be our last thing here before we get out of here.
Honestly, Drew, I thought your idea of having Schwarzenegger lead like a new team of SEALs and that somehow the Predator. I think if Schwarzenegger isn't in it, I don't think I'm interested.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I think it's the same thing as look. If Harrison Ford can come back and do The Force Awakens, Arnold can come back and do a Predator relaunch, a true Predator relaunch, and give us something great. Like, why not, man? Like,
well, I think there's a new Predator game out that because I saw him. He tweeted something out about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's still obviously interested in the IP, and
I think he could do it. I think I mean, like, he looks great. I saw him like a month ago riding down my street. I was like walking my dog, and I was like, listen to this jackass doing a horrible Arnold impersonation. And I looked over and I was like, oh my God, it's actually him. What a wonderful accent. Like,
he had whiskey and Lulu with him, I'm sure. No. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Iceman, call sign Iceman. Thanks for coming by. Drew and I are just going to read off a very long list of generals here, but we're going to let you go.
All right, boys.
Much love to you, man. Thank you so much for
being
here, Iceman. See you soon, bro.
Take care.
God damn it. I fucking love that guy, man.
He's the best, man.
He's the best. I mean, honestly, I didn't think I was going to be here today. I didn't think, and like Iceman was like legitimately just like a life support.
Yeah.
But then like you remember that he's just a true fucking talent. He's so good. And like he loved Predator. He loves Predator just as much, if not more than we do.
He was like so jacked to come on and talk about Predator because he's truly one of us, man. It's the best.
He is an action guy. Like he just actually is an action guy.
Yeah, agreed. It's so good.
It's so good.
All right, guys. So there's a big list of generals here. We're going to start reading off. I'm going to start up here at the top.
Wait, hold on. So if you look down at the very bottom, I've started writing in the last few, but there's a couple missing, and I don't have my phone on me.
Which one are you looking at here?
I'm looking at there's one called The Greatest Movie Ever Made, but it must be a different one. No, I'm in the same one that you're in. I can see you're in the document. So if you scroll down to the very bottom, if you go to 41, I just wrote in CJ, but we're missing like the movie one and one other one.
So I'm in a different document. I'm looking here at the actual the Patreon list that's got the full list and all the call signs.
All right, I'm gonna let you do the whole thing then.
All right, you got it. All right, starting up at the top here, we got Commanders-in-Chief Lucas and Alex Shashek. Big time salute to y'all. We've got our 5-star generals, call sign PLD, John Getz, call sign Bartab, call sign Whiskers, Oscar Romo, Mac Ryan, Cody Seal. Those are the 5-star generals. Sorry, guys, just getting used to the call signs here. Then generals in the Action Army. We've got call sign Quiz Show. We've got Steven Anderson. We've got call sign Coinless. We've got call sign The Ripper. Call sign Monty. That's Pat Bulfamonte. Pat, if you missed that. Call sign Cash. We got call sign. Well, actually, we don't have the one yet for Ewid Borlage. That's Rats and King. We got Glenn Caesar, General Page Chowdhury.
Should we call Ewid Borlage call sign Rock Hard? No. All right. No, we can keep going.
Sure, you got that one from. Got call signs Kano and Katana. Got Tim Etheridge. We got Trevor Fast. We got call sign Freedom. Call sign Goat. Call sign Sunshine. Kyle Grandinetti. We got Matty Gunner. We got Philip Gustafson. We got call sign. We got Luke Marshall Hayes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. All right, I'll take it over. Andrew Hayes. Call sign Party J, Kelsey Kirkland, call sign Phantom, Danny Phantom, call sign Sadi Lemon Lucky, call sign The Forgotten, call sign Deja Vu, call sign hashtag Forgotten, call sign We Don't Know Who You Are, all AJ Lancaster, call sign Kyle, Garth McMurray, JJ Monahan, Jose Montalvo, call sign Jerry with the G, Carl Newell, Anthony Nugent, Joaquim Oliveira, call sign The Pusher, 100%, call sign The White Ghost, Larry and Lindsay Payne, Danny Ramirez,
Call sign 69.
Call sign 69, which again apparently was very appropriately named. Ben and I still have no idea what that's all about. CJ Robinson, Eric Ritz, Josh Ryan, which is call sign Canada, Tyler Schwent, Tharshi Shri, Sergio Vieira, and of course, Alan Smithy.
The director, Alan Smithy.
Alan Smithy.
Call sign, I think it's, are we call, and call sign the director, I think is what's going on there.
We should call him call sign the Colonel. He's not a director. He's a producer. No, we'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone. You guys are amazing. We love you so much. Thank you so much for being here once again today. We'll be here back tomorrow for an episode of The Action Guys with just Ben and myself.
Solo show.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring on generals, maybe not. Maybe we'll just spend the whole time hanging out with you guys. So make sure you tune in tomorrow here on Action Industries. AJ, don't want to miss anyone. I don't know who that is. I don't know what he's referring to.
Team Bateman for life. It's not June yet, so Drew still doesn't have to wear a stupid haircut, but it's coming soon.
But I got a lot of hair to do it with, man. Have you thought about the first style you want to do?
That's all I've been thinking about.
That's all? Okay. All right. I love it. All right, guys. Big time salute. Do you got some music for us or no?
Sign Iceman. Say what?
Do you have music for us or no?
To cue us out?
Yeah. To play us out? What does that mean, to play us out? Sting to play us out? You know what I'm referring to?
No.
Wait, do you know the Bill O'Reilly freak out?
Yeah, you're talking about the fuck it, we'll do it live. That one?
Yeah, that's the one. He says, yeah, okay, all right. Do you have anything to play us out? All right, guys. Big time salute. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Love you.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.